Yeah, what's going on, guys? This video is not really going to be formulated in a constructed manner. I'm basically just going to be going over my thoughts on the Dawntrail actions for the healers. I guess TLDR, in case you don't really care about like any specific healer in mind. I think they all look pretty good. I feel like it was pretty hard to mess up healers in the state they are in, so I mean, just adding additions to them is nice. There are some changes that I think are going to happen, which I'm curious if they'll come to fruition or not. But I guess we can just start with White Mage. Now, the biggest thing about White Mage, to me, is the presence of mind change that they added. Moving forward in 7.0, presence of mind is going to change. I guess it's going to be a GCD instant cast that they can use 3 times under a specific duration, probably 15 seconds, I would assume, which is kind of insane to me because not only did they add a gap closer to the job, which we'll see here in just a second, their mobility was one of their pros overall, especially when concerning Astra, because Astra's mobility, even with like under light speed, was just not that great. So like having 3 instant casts every minute, or I guess 4 instant casts every minute with Misery, and then having 3 instant casts with Presence of Mind on top of the gap closer is kind of insane. Definitely going to be a prog monster, I feel. It's like, especially gap closers. Like gap closers in prog are fucking insane, especially ultimate prog specifically. They usually reign king in that kind of environment, which we just saw right here. If you look right here, they gap close. Now this definitely looks like, I was pretty confident this was on Advant, but the more that I watch this, it's just really hard to see because we don't see the hitbox, right? Like this hitbox could be like right here and they just gap close to it. Honestly, it would be really cool if it was on Advant just because it would give it some differentiation from Icarus, but you know, who knows? Who knows? That's cool though. But yeah, like when we're watching the trailer, we got a Medica 3, or whatever that is, probably Medica 3, and they use Presence of Mind. And you can see this is a new animation for it. Boom. And there's no like glow around them, so it doesn't really look like it's signaling an off GCD, which makes me think again it's going to be an instant cast GCD that they can use 3 times under presence during their 2-minute bursts. What else is there? Oh yeah, so the new follow-up off Temperance, or I'm assuming it's off Temperance, because they put a lot of heavy emphasis on putting follow-up abilities off of 2-minute abilities this expansion in 7.0. But we can see here, I'm going to slow it down just a little bit. Put it to 0.5 is probably fine. I'm not even sure when it's going to appear. Probably soon. When it does the new skill here, I think it's right here. You can see this ability looks like it gives the Paladin here a shield, like there's like a little barrier animation. So maybe going into 7.0, this follow-up ability off Temperance gives the additional shield to kind of like help match that jeez, I can't speak, match that astrologian disparity, because like currently right now in Endwalker, astrologian is just like a massive mitigation monster. See you every 60 seconds. You know, that 10% 5-second mitigation goes a long way on top of neutral sect. So maybe this is helping, you know, close that gap just a little bit. But overall, I mean, White Mage looks really good. They just made it better, in my opinion. One thing I'm actually interested is if a size is gone, because we don't actually see a size in this trailer, and part of me thinks the three Presence of Mind attacks are going to supplement a size, especially because, you know, a size is a 40-second cooldown. How many sizes do you get in a 2-minute period? 3. How many does Presence of Mind give you? How many attacks does it give you? Looks like 3. So I wouldn't be surprised if their solution to managing the healing tools that they're giving you on top of the already existing toolkit is removing a size and other abilities on other healers, which we'll get to. So I'm curious to see what's going to happen. White Mage looks good. Big fan. I guess moving on to Astrologian. Where is it? Here it is. Astrologian, it's really, really hard to tell what's going on here because like we don't know how the new toolkit works. It's basically a whole new job in the sense that the cards were reworked. But moving into it, let's just see what we got going on here. I'll play the trailer. So when they do the first card, when they play the first card, it's the leftmost card here in this deck. And now when you watch the trailer here, it goes to the rightmost and then it's going to pick the middle. So we got 3 cards right there. It was leftmost, rightmost, middle. Now my biggest fear with this is that when they play when they get their sleeve draw ability right here, we'll come back to this ability by the way. So they use their sleeve draw ability, whatever the ability is. We don't know what it is. I'm just going to call it sleeve draw for now because like it's kind of what it reminds me of. They do their sleeve draw. They get their 3 cards. When they play this again, their minor arcana was different. So we know that minor arcana is a completely different keybind. Good. Okay, hand emoji. But when they play these cards here, it goes from leftmost to rightmost to center again. Now, surely Square Enix doesn't do this, but for some reason, if they are watching, please do not force the player to do not lock this ability, or at least the 3 cards in the center, to one button, okay? Don't make it go left, right, center, or whatever order they're gonna pick. Right? That would be so fucking bad. That'd be so awful. Please. But I guess the cards in general now, it looks when they went over it in the live letter, basically it's you get a damage increasing card or like a buff, you get a restorative card, and you get a mitigative card, which is kind of insane, right? When you think about it, because Astrologian's toolkit is also getting a confirmed additional charge to ED. So it's like, what the fuck do they need all this single target, I guess, mitigation / effective healing for? I guess we'll see, you know? We don't know what abilities are removed. I have my theories, but until we see the actual Mediator information, we're not going to have any idea of what's going on. But they play the cards here. And now I want to get into this next ability they use because it reminds me of a very old ability that we don't have anymore. And I can't tell if it's scaled or a follow-up off Divination or it's a completely new ability. But it definitely looks like a Divination ability, right? But this is interesting, right? Like, what is this? It kind of reminds me of like a disable effect. And the reason why it kind of does that is because like right after they use it, they make the enemy do an attack, right? Very weird, very ominous. Makes me think it's kind of like maybe like a CU replacement of sorts. Like maybe CU's gone and their solution is this. It also looks like it's an AoE. So maybe it does damage and reduces the like kind of like a dismantle. Reduces the actions of, or the damage coming from the boss. Very cool. Very interested to see what that is. Again, this is all just hypothesis. Could be not disable. And then we have this, right? We have the new neutral sect coming up here. Where someone's the fucking galaxy behind you. Or again, hypothesis. It looks like it's from neutral sect because they use it and then the ability happens. Come on, play your cards. Let's go. Boom. There we go. Now, this is interesting. Somebody pointed this out to me. I actually didn't notice this at first, but the animation it does is very similar to kind of like the star right here, right? Let's see if we can slow it down just a little bit. Because we also don't see star in here, which makes me think that it's maybe gone. And I would actually be okay with it because the reason why FFXIV healing can feel so easy sometimes is because you have a lot of abilities that are on such a short cooldown that kind of just like take care of like all the damage. And I think it's fine to have some abilities on the short cooldown, but like the issue is like there's a large majority, Like, yeah, for Astrologian, for example, you have CU, Star, and Celestial Opposition, which are all on a 60-second cooldown. Like, it's kind of insane, right? There's just an overabundance of them. I think having one is okay, but having 3 60-second healing cooldowns is way too much for, like, it just adds too much convenience. So this might, you know, maybe their solution here is, hey, let's remove Star, because this also looks like an AoE around themselves, you know, who, like, it could be just the healing effect, but I wouldn't be surprised if, like, them removing Star, because Star is also, like, there's been complaints about it being like a ground target skill. It's so big, you don't really need to pay attention anymore. It's like there's a lot of, like, reasons for them to remove Star that I could see them replacing with this. The only weird thing about this, though, is that it's tied, seemingly it's tied to your neutral sect, which I don't know how that would work from a damage perspective, because, like, there's no way you're going to press neutral sect and then use this ability for damage. That sounds absolutely insane from a design standpoint. So I'm curious to see what this actually is in the benchmark, or not benchmark, the media tour. But it looks cool. Yeah, it looks awesome. Astrologian, big fan. You know, a lot of people are upset about the RNG removal, and it is upsetting from a, I guess, a farm perspective. The biggest thing with Astrologian, though, is that it will increase its prog efficiency by a shit ton. So playing Astrologian in prog, whether it be hardcore or casual, it'll feel a lot better. Again, though, it is kind of sad that you lose that skill expression, especially because, like, Astrologian was, like, one of the remaining jobs with, like, a high level of skill expression when it came to min-maxing. So that is a little bit sad, but if I'm okay with it, you know, surely others can't be too. That's not to say their opinion's invalid, though, but I think it has its pros and cons. Because honestly, Astrologian in prog it looks kind of fun, looks kind of crazy. Moving on to Sage. Sage doesn't actually get that much. I see a lot of people, like, freaking out about Sage. Oh my god, Sage is crazy. But, like, honestly, when I watch this, it doesn't look that insane, right? There's a lot of speculation on this ability. We don't know what it is. It definitely looks like a new damage ability. And it's funny because, like, if they're removing, let's say they're removing Star, they're removing Messiahs, and they're removing Energy Drain, maybe this is, like, their way of, like, hey, maybe Sage is actually now the quote-unquote DPS healer. They have more DPS actions. Because when you watch this, it doesn't look like they removed any of the already existing ones. They still have Phlegma, and they still have whatever else they have. That's a new ability. It looks like it's scaled off of Numa. I'm pretty sure this is the AoE Cardia that they're showcasing right here. Now, the AoE Cardia is... I mean, it's, like, cool in theory, but, like, it's one of the weird ones, right? Because, like, in 6.0, in Endwalker, Sage was considered, like, the pure shield healer, right? The restorative shield healer. Whereas, like, Scholar was, like, more so considered the mitigative shield healer. And we had, like, a theory based on this, right? Just based on the toolkit. But moving forward into Dawntrail, it definitely looks like they're taking this stance that, like, hey, Sage is not going to be able to put out as much mitigation as Scholar, but it's going to be able to do more pure healing, because that's what AoE Cardia sounds like it's going to do. It doesn't sound like it's going to do any shielding whatsoever. You know, who knows? Maybe it is, like, kind of like a mini Penheima. Maybe it does, like, 200 potency heal, 100 potency shield or some shit. Who knows? But I highly doubt it. But the weird thing to me about this Cardia is that Cardia requires you to, you know, look right there. If you see, they did a Toxicon, and then there's, like, a little proc around them. But it requires you to be in uptime, right? It requires you to hit the boss. So now Sage has 2 abilities, and it's also weird because it's locked behind Numa. So now it has 2 abilities that require you to do damage to the boss, or have the boss be able to be attacked. Now, that can be a problem more so in Ultimate Prog, where maybe there's going to be a downtime phase where there's a little bit of healing, more like kind of like Delta, right? In top. Dynamis Delta, you know, it's not like an insane HPS check, but, you know, there's more healing there than any of the other downtime trios. There's also maybe a downtime like P12, limit cut, where you know, if you don't heal in between the hits, you can die, or you don't have enough mitigation, you can die if if you're not topped. Like there's situations where now Sage has to be like, okay, well, if I'm going to use this, I have to plan my toolkit around this downtime phase. It's also kind of awkward because it's pure healing, right? It's not damage. So like now there's maybe a situation where like, you know, I want to use holos here and it's more efficient here, but I can't really do that because I don't have anything for this period where there's downtime. So now I'm kind of like forced to do a Numa, like kind of like an inefficient rotation in a way to supplement this kind of like awkward change, or awkward, I guess, position that they're in. So I'm kind of interested how that's going to work. Outside that though, they move in here, they do a Eucrasian Dicrasia right here. AoE dot. I see a lot of people thinking this is going to stack. It's not. I don't think it's going to stack. I think it's going to be like Reaper, where, you know, you have your single target AoE, or sorry, AoE. You have your single target debuff, and then you have the AoE one as well that applies it on multiple targets, but it just refreshes it or adds to the already existing one. I think that's pretty much what this is going to do. I don't think this is going to stack. If it does, that's crazy. That's awesome, but I don't think it is. But yeah, that's Sage. We didn't really get that much information. We got this new ability right here, this new attack, and we got the follow-up off Numa, and we got the AoE dot, I think. Did I miss anything? Well, I guess we got the new... We also got the upgraded AoE effects, but I'm not really going to talk too much about this because, like, we don't know what they do, and it's probably just flavor with, like, maybe an extra minor effect. Blegma, AoE dot. Yeah, nothing much going on here. But actually, I'm really excited to talk about Scholar. Scholar got... to me, it's kind of insane. First off, they got a new sucker animation again. I said I wasn't going to talk about it, but I guess I should, because I just talked about Sage and whatever. They get a follow-up off their chain stratagem here. This was confirmed to be an AoE dot, which we know, based off the live letter information. Kind of cool. I don't think this is going to be... I think this is mainly just for dungeons, because using chain strat in dungeons feels pretty bad. I'm sure anybody who ran Scholar in dungeons is like, hey, technically it's optimal to chain one target. This is their solution to that. There might be minor optimizations in, like, let's say a top phase in P2 where, you know, you're using your 2 minute at the very start of the phase. You can do a back-to-back AoE attack here. But, you know, that's going to probably be very niche, and I don't really see them designing content around it. The XCOG here. Now, here is where it gets interesting, right? So we have a new form called Seraphism, and Seraphism, to me, it has the same effects as Dissipation in the sense that it's just a healing increase tool, kind of like Temperance and Neutral Sect. I'm curious if Dissipation still exists. I don't see it coexisting with this. It wouldn't make sense to me. So this to me is just like a Dissipation reskin. My biggest worry is that Scholar lost its ability to generate extra Aether Flow, or Dissipation is changed to be more like Rizomata. That would be good, instead of just getting rid of it entirely, because like that's one of Scholar's prog pros. It's being able to get those 3 Aether Flow back like almost in just one button. But Seraphism is interesting because it changes what our Adlo and our Sucker do. We don't know those effects, but this is Adlo, or what we assume to be Adlo. And you can also use Seraph in it, which is cool, so it's not restricted like Dissipation was. But we also see the Sucker. This is Sucker, what we presume to be Sucker. And it's hard to say what it does. It definitely looks like it has some kind of like barrier effect, especially because like there's like these little Seraph angels around as well. So maybe it's like kind of like a, when you press this ability, you have the original Sucker, the Galvanize effect, but you also have like a mini Seraphic Veil effect, or like a completely different debuff that stacks with Seraphic Veil, which to me would make more sense. And I think that's kind of like what they're trying to signify here, is that like either this lets you use Seraphic Veil outside of like just Seraph, because that's why they summoned it, because like these do kind of remind me a lot of this. I mean, I'm pretty sure that it's the same model even. And I'm curious what that is, but that just, to me, makes me worried because, like, the disparity, the dichotomy between Sage and Scholar is, like, already kind of strained in Scholar's favor for most content, just because when it comes to, like, bleeding edge progression, you have Expedient, and you also, like, shields are generally more valuable, at least in ultimate prog, than Sage's toolkit, the pure healing toolkit side. But I want to get into some of the nitty gritty stuff. So we see Seraphism, we see the new chain, but something that's really, really interesting that caught my eye is right here. We can see emergency tactics is used. And now, if you're paying attention at the start, this Adlo is instant cast. So what's going on here? What's going on here? You know, we don't know, but maybe ET makes your next cast of Adlo or Sucker instant cast under Seraphism, or just in general. In general would be pretty insane, just because that's kind of like Sage's pros. Like, that's one of Sage's, like, pros, like, kind of like sets it at a different, or sets it to be different than Scholar. So I really feel like that's not the case, but also it could just be like an amplifier effect. It's going to do it here, another ET, and then the Sucker is instacast. Very cool, interesting stuff. This could all like I said earlier, this could also just be like the next Adlo, or the Adlo Sucker and Seraphism is instant cast, and that's their way of like, hey, Scholar kind of struggles on healing on the move. Let's give them like a tiny period, like, you know, every 2 minutes they can do 2 GCDs or whatever of instant movement, or maybe, you know, they can, if they spam Sucker under Seraphism, it's instant cast. Who knows, right? But very cool, very interesting game. Like, all this gameplay is just like Scholar. To me, Scholar definitely got kind of like the cream of the crop of the changes, because like all their changes so far to me are like fixing their weaknesses. I don't think there's anything else in Scholar's toolkit that I missed, or that I saw. Got the instant cast off ET, or maybe off the Seraphism in general. But yeah, Sage versus Scholar. Oops, I accidentally stopped recording at the very end of that. But yeah, Sage versus Scholar. Scholar, I'm just worried that Scholar is going to be heavily preferred, or like almost required in a sense, because of their new toolkit on top of like their already existing one. But yeah, we'll see what happens. I'm curious to see the Mediator information, because that's going to be the big one. It's going to kind of like tell us how the future is going to be. I mean, they can always change stuff too. They usually do. I remember Sage in the Mediator build was quite a bit different than Scholar. It was like their toolkit was like almost 1-for-1 of Scholar, and then they changed it like on the release build to be a little bit different, you know, just so it wasn't like, hey, this is just Scholar but a different job. But yeah, we'll see. I'm curious. White Mage looks really good. Scholar looks really good. Honestly, they all look really good. I think Sage probably disappointed me the most, but that's just because it's not that it didn't really change much. But we just don't know what's going on, right? We don't know what this does, and I'm not really a big fan of the Numa and AoE Cardia interaction. It just doesn't really, it's just too conditional for my liking. Don't really know what's going on with Astro. Astro looks cool though, looks fun. I'm pretty excited to play it. If I ever get the opportunity to play in a prog, you know, I'll probably do, because it looks fun. Well, I guess I'll play whatever's better in prog, but maybe like a friend group or something, I'll play Astro for like a reprog or something, because it looks really fun, really exciting. Farm though, not so much. Yeah, I kind of want them to remove CU too. Removing CU would be nice, because that kind of like that's kind of like the reason why Mage is like kind of like, it's kind of like why Astro, I guess, is more preferred a lot of the times, because like having CU, just being able to alternate, like, because if there's a big AoE every 60 seconds, Astrologia can cover every single one, whereas Mage can only cover the ones on 2 minutes. So if their solution here is to just like, hey, let's get rid of CU, add a follow-up off neutral sect, and then they do the same thing for Y mage, you know, homogenize just a little bit, but have different effects, would probably be the best play. But yeah, no, I mean, that's just my thoughts. Yeah, I mean, sorry if it comes off like a little bit rambly. I don't really have any notepad whatsoever here. I didn't really like have like thoughts going into it. I just kind of wanted to talk my thoughts about the new jobs, or I guess the changes to the healers, and yeah. Just want to get a video out because I know some people were asking like, "Hey Momo, what do you think?" I'm like, okay, well, I probably should make a video. But yep, here it is. I'll have videos on the Meteor builds whenever we get the information. But outside that, I will see you guys later. Peace.